There we go. So welcome everyone to our Lunch and Learn today. My name is Angie. I'm the program coordinator for the Business Center Guelph-Wellington. And today we are joined with Danielle. I'm hoping I'm not saying it wrong. Joworski. I'm hoping you can
close enough. Yeah.
please correct me if I'm wrong. So as normal, for those of you who have attended our live Lunch and Learns, if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat. If you're watching live on Facebook, add them to the chat there. I'll be monitoring throughout the session. If you're watching after the fact on YouTube, if you want to throw them in the chat or email me at success@guelphbusiness.com, I will get you connected with Danielle and get those answers for you. So Danielle, thank you for joining us. I will let you take it from here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Angela, for having me here. And again, to the Business Center Guelph-Wellington for providing this Lunch and Learn. Hello, everybody. So everyone who's here live with us on Zoom and everyone watching on Facebook and the replay, hello, welcome, and thank you for being here. So this is a conversation that we're going to have, and really, it's really to help you to build that rapport with your audience from before you even say hello on the camera to the end and continuing the conversation well beyond. So just a quick question as we get started. I'm very conversational. I will be asking questions throughout about the 45-minute presentation. So feel free to put your responses in the comments or the chat, just so we can be a little bit of engagement, and then you can also see and share your experience around building rapport with your audience on camera. So question for you, just kind of get us started. Where are you connecting from right now today? Are you in Southern Ontario, experiencing this really interesting weather that we're having right now? Or are you somewhere else? So if you want to share where you are right now, just to get us kicked off, that would be great. Again, you can use the chat or the comments. So we've got Guelph. I'm in Guelph as well. So I think I had about 4 different types of snow / rain / freezing rain. Everything was coming this morning. Edmonton, we've got someone from Edmonton. So is it spring or is it winter over in Edmonton, Isaac? We've got a Kitchener as well. I'm also looking at the Facebook to see if I can keep track Facebook Live. So if you see me looking to the right, then I'm trying to connect with the Facebook Live. Okay, and Isaac, in Edmonton, spring is coming soon. Yes. So for all of us, this is wonderful. Thank you so much. So I want to introduce myself before we get into this conversation. My name is Danielle Joworski. I am a mindset coach and visibility consultant, specifically more for women 40 plus. But don't worry, this conversation today doesn't matter who you are, what age you are, what business you are, it is for you. It's not specific to women 40 plus. And so I am also a TV host. I host 2 TV shows here on Rogers TV, the C-Suite, where the C stands for choice, helping women to create choices in their careers, connecting women's career challenges to the solutions provided by women entrepreneurs, and also In Studio, which is a very conversation type based show where we talk about events, stories, and just collaborations locally and beyond. So this conversation today was the idea for the topic came actually from a conversation I was having with one of my clients. And she was working with me looking to get more comfortable and confident on camera. One of the issues that she had was around how do you manage online? She was completely comfortable leading conversations and webinars and seminars in person, but something happened with this shift, especially over the last couple of years, to move things online. There was something about the camera where she felt she was having a hard time engaging and creating that rapport with her audience. And I thought, well, she's having that challenge. I gave her some tips and some insights around that. It's probably a bigger challenge. So when the opportunity came to have this conversation today with you, with the Business Center Guelph-Wellington, said, let's talk rapport. And how do you build that rapport and that engagement with your audience online and through this lens, this camera that we all seem to be using these days? And when I was talking with my client, I kind of basically said to her, when you're coming online, especially if you're looking to do webinars in your business, seminars, on like training, online videos and things like that, sometimes having these conversations can kind of feel like a dinner party. Remember when we used to have dinner parties before? Maybe you're having them now. where you've got a dinner party, you put out reservations, some people confirm and say, yes, I'm coming. Some people just show up. Some people say they're coming, they say they don't show up, and just everyone comes at the same time at your front door. So you're juggling being the host and ushering people into the conversation and into your home, and you're directing them as to where they want to go. When you're working online, doing again a webinar, sometimes even seminars, or you're trying to create these online videos, you're playing a lot of these host roles at the same time, especially if you don't have help. So I've got Angela here helping me today, which is great. She's putting a link to the workbook that I'm going to be working through. So if you are by yourself and you're doing this all by yourself, it can feel sometimes awkward. And just transitioning from having an in-person event to the online and trying to connect on camera can feel awkward when there's so many things going on and it feels like you have to structure things differently. So that's what this conversation is all about today. So what you can expect from the conversation today, and I will share with you if you download the workbook. I'm working from the same workbook. So Angela has put the link to the workbook in the chat, in the comments and Facebook as well. So if you like to take notes, or if you're watching this on the replay, then feel free to print this out and just follow along. So what you can expect from me, I'm a very conversational style approach. I do not believe that I am the be all, the end all, and the one and only solution to a problem or a challenge that you may have. And you'll see that through the questions that I'll be asking you throughout this conversation. I'm all about content and storytelling. So integrating and balancing, giving you tips, stories, and insights with also personal stories about myself. So if you have questions, we are going to have a Q&A at the end after the live, where it sounds like for everyone who's here on the Zoom. So you can save your questions to then, and I'm more than happy to answer them. And then I'm going to provide, again, some tips, ideas, actions, and strategies to help you really build that rapport on camera and feeling much more comfortable and confident doing so. So a couple learning outcomes of what we're going to cover today. Really, the outcomes are, I'm really hoping that you will become familiar with easy ways and simple steps to build rapport through the camera. You're also going to become more aware of how your mindset influences your courage, your comfort, and your confidence on camera. And I want to say that getting on camera, whether it be recording a video for social media, doing your first webinar or your 10th webinar, or having conversations, whether they be live or recorded, it takes courage to get on camera. So just the fact that you are showing up on camera to engage with your audience and to provide them with value, that is absolutely amazing and wonderful on your part. So that takes a lot of courage. So I want to congratulate you for having that courage, for already doing it. And if you're just starting in your entrepreneurial journey and video and camera work is something that you really want to get into and you've been afraid, again, it takes courage. And it can start with small steps or leaps. You can work at your own pace. Another outcome is that you're going to be able to apply tools and strategies to include rapport building activities into your on-camera presence and building that professional presence that you're looking to have on camera. And you're also going to learn about some common on-camera audience concerns and strategies to how to work around them. So really kind of what's in it for you, or what's, kind of what are the benefits for you from this conversation today? It's really, if you've ever been unsure on how to engage with your audience on camera, you've felt awkward switching from that in-person to on camera, or you're just not sure what the flow is, you're looking for ways to increase engagement so that you can do those high value marketing strategies, such as webinars, such as online training videos, and you're looking for tips, insights, and even just some awareness that you're not alone in some of the concerns and the challenges you've had, this is a webinar for you. So I'm all about helping entrepreneurs to position and promote yourself as the expert that you are. And because camera and camera use is not going away, even as we return to in-person events, it's being able to be comfortable and confident, engage with your audience on camera, to start the conversation here and then be able to continue it afterwards. It is really critical to the growth and the success of your business. And I'll share about my visibility journey and my journey with the camera as we go through this conversation. Okay, so the story that I shared around being on camera and engaging with your audience is kind of like that dinner party. If you share in the chat or the comments if that scenario sounded familiar. when you've done a webinar, what do you do? How do you say? Have you ever felt awkward or uncomfortable engaging with your audience on camera? You can just say yes, you can say no. Do you love it? Share if you love it, or if there's something particular that you want to learn to grow from this. So who loves connecting and having rapport with the audience on camera? All the above from Vanita. So you feel great, you feel confident, but you feel awkward. Does anybody love connecting with your audience on camera and feel that they have that really strong rapport?
I say we got a couple of hearts on your Facebook for that. So
yay, thank you. I keep looking to Facebook, but it's not looping in for me. So I'm going to leave that alone. So thank you for the hearts. Not me, says Jessica. And Angela's saying, I enjoy it when it's a discussion. Okay, so we're going to start really focusing on, so thank you. Thank you for your comments, everybody. And so we're going to start looking at some easy ways.
Just so you know, we also got a comment on Facebook saying that they feel awkward.
Awkward. So, yeah, because that's awkward, because especially, this is what my clients share with me, is the fact that when you're in person, everyone's physically in the chair. You can see them. You can read a room better. You can look at faces. You can look at body language. When you're online, especially when your cameras are off, it's a lot harder for you as a presenter to really gauge the engagement and if what you're sharing is connecting with and giving the value that you really want and you're hoping you're giving. So these are what we're going to cover today, some tips and strategies on how you can start to gauge as well the engagement and the rapport that you're building with your audience. So thank you everyone for sharing. Okay, so we're going to start off with looking at easy ways and simple steps to building rapport. Again, if you're working with the working through the workbook, then it's basically, there's 4 columns. And I like working in 4s, and you'll see that throughout this presentation. So some easy ways and simple steps to start building rapport is really, and I'm going to start from even before you even say hello on camera. And the first thing is you want to be calm. Now, be calm, it sounds easy, but I'm sure you've had the experience where you're doing your first webinar, maybe your first TV interview, you're nervous. And it's so again, to say, oh, just be calm, it's okay. Yeah, it sounds easy, but it can be a little more challenging to actually be calm. So I like to break things down into as simple steps as I can to decrease the overwhelm and to allow you to focus on one thing at a time. So the ways that I use to be calm is I use a process of breathing 5 times. So you always hear, just take a deep breath, which is great. I use the number 5 breaths because I used to use 3, but I found that it wasn't enough to really make me get calm. So 5 breaths for me, it gives you time. So it lowers your heart rate. It lowers the speed at which you're breathing. And then when you actually you do your breath work and you're much more calm, what happens is you tend to speak at your normal speaking pace. So when you're not calm, you tend to speak faster. So when you take these breaths, you actually slow down the pace at which you're going to be talking. Sometimes you even deepen the tone of your voice. And there's research to say that audience are more connected to a lower register tone than a higher register tone. So breathing also helps to bring down that tone. It also, again, helps to create that sense of calm. And other way, it's not just taking breaths. Something I always do as well is I stretch, especially if you are in a role where you're sitting a lot. Sometimes you want to take that deep breath, but you feel like you can only get so far and your lungs are only filling up halfway. Something I do before I get on camera, whether it be to have a live conversation, before I even came on this camera today, before I do the TV show, I get up and I stretch. If I can do some yoga, I will do it. I will even do a power pose as well to stretch, plus get in that pose and that mindset of being calm and powerful. Stretching really helps because it stretches those muscles so that when you are taking those deep breaths before you get on camera, especially if you're sitting down, you've got the muscles of stretch. So you can actually breathe in and take in more air. And to be calm, a third tip that I have is to use visual cues. This could be a sticky note that's right beneath your camera that says breathe. It can say an inspirational quote that really connects with you. or you could have a picture right in behind your camera of your dog, your family, something. Could be a picture of the beach, whatever calms you down and makes you feel good. Putting that around your camera can be a visual attention activator and a visual cue that can help you to feel more calm. And then once you get going, remaining in that calm state. So easy, simple step number 2. So the first was be calm. Number 2 is to be curious. So being curious, it works in a couple different ways. One, it's be curious about your audience. And there's a couple different ways to do this. It's asking questions from your sign up form to the very beginning of the conversation, your webinar, your online training, all the way through to the end. And what happens when you're curious is it takes the focus off of you and what you're going to be doing and what you have to say. And it's no longer about you and what you're giving to your audience, but it's focusing and turning and flipping the things around, looking at them. What do they need? What does your audience need? Who is your audience? What questions might they be asking? And when you flip things around and you're curious about who your audience is, it allows you to better connect with them on paper when you're making your notes, when you're developing whatever your talk happens to be. It makes you more curious about them and wanting to know them. So it's not about you anymore. It's about best serving them. So a third step is to be what I call at cause. When you're at cause, it basically means that you are controlling not just every step of the conversation, so every step of your webinar, every step of your training video, you are controlling the flow of that conversation as well as the outcome. Understanding before you even turn that camera on, what is the outcome that you want to achieve and you are going to achieve with that conversation through that camera. And when you're at cause, it's all about having that plan. Again, you've got this outcome. What is it that you're working towards? It can also mean when you're at cause, you have a plan. So you're in control. So you know step by step what it is that you want to happen. So if things go bump, instead of bump in the middle of the night, bump in the middle of the camera, you've got a plan. Things don't, you're able to respond versus react, and you can get back on your plan and back on focus a lot easier. So even if you're not using a PowerPoint, even if you're not using notes, when you're at cause and have that plan, you can direct, you're controlling that conversation no matter what happens. And if it happens to get derailed or you take a little pit stop, you can get right back on. On the flip side, from your audience perspective, when you're at cause, it actually shows confidence. You may not feel so confident, but you having that control in the plan, it makes your audience feel more confident with you because you're sharing, you've got a plan, and it makes them feel more safe and comfortable with you because you are in the driver's seat, you know where you're going, and they become much more happy to be a passenger and along for the ride. And step number 4 is to be conversational. And that means things like asking open and closed-ended questions, asking questions throughout your conversation. And being conversational is also about your voice. What kind of inflection are you using? What is your tone? Think about and imagine the last conversation you had with a really good friend and you were really enjoying that conversation. What was your voice like? Were you more sing-song? Were you excited? Was your tone raising? Was that inflection raising when you were getting excited? Or if you're sharing something a little more personal, like you change the volume, you change the tone, that becomes much more conversational than that monotonous. So have the inflection, have the tone. You can still share information that is serious. You can share information that is critical to your audience. Your tone can change, but you can still have that conversational flow. There's the beginning, there's the end, there's everything in between. And it's going to be this journey, and you want to bring them along that journey. So that's 4 simple steps to create and start building rapport. So it's be calm, be curious, be at cause, and be conversational. So a story I have about building rapport, and especially being at cause and being calm, and the visual cues. The first episodes I was taping for the C-suite, I have no background in broadcasting. My first degree is in microbiology. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that I would be putting myself in front of a TV camera. I wanted to do it. So that first night, I was nervous, I was excited, and everything was going great. But all of a sudden I started making some mistakes. And as I was making mistakes, and again, there's an audience, I had 2 full shows of lineups of guests right there in front of me. I was making mistakes. I was getting really nervous. I was starting to get a little bit overwhelmed, which made me make more mistakes. Something that happened that shifted that experience and got me back on track was one of the guests actually ended up standing behind the camera, and the camera that I would be looking into. So what that was doing was, instead of me looking into the camera and thinking I had to talk to a camera, she stood right behind it so that I felt like I was talking to her. It was no longer about the camera. It's like I could almost see through the camera and I was just having a conversation with her. It got me to feel much more calm. I got back on track. The mistakes stopped, and then we were able to get out and finish the show faster. When we shifted to at home and having to tape the show at home, that was different again. I would get to the point where I would start making mistakes. I wasn't sure of what I was going to say. So what I did at home is I started using Post-it notes. And I would have a stand up in behind my camera that would either have a picture of my dog. I would have the word breathe on a sticky note, and I would put it right underneath the camera. No one can see what's around your camera, whether it be behind or right below or to the sides. No one can see that. So it's just, and it's something that's just outside your peripheral vision. So even if you're staring into that camera, you can still see in your peripheral vision that attention activator and those pictures. And I like to use colored sticky notes because, again, breathe, I will put on blue. So even if I can't see the word, I see the color and I know what that color means and I connect that. So those are some ways that I've learned to help be calm so that I can build that rapport with people through camera. So question for you, what is something that you've done to build rapport with your audience? What's a trick that you have that it seems to work and you're seeing engagement, people are connecting? So if you want to share that tip in the chat or the comments, please do so that we can also learn from you as well. Again, I'm not the be all, the end all, and the one and only. So again, what is something you've done that's to build rapport with your audience that works for you? So we have authentically respond to comments and questions with humility. That's a beautiful one, Benita. Thank you for sharing. Is there anything coming from Facebook at all, Angela?
Let me refresh it because sometimes it doesn't always show, but I don't see anything currently.
Okay.
I know how hard it is. Trust me, as somebody who does all my workshops virtually and used to run conventions, it's not easy to get in front of people in any format. But breathing is a big one. That's my big one.
Breathing, the big one. Yeah.
Breathing's the big one. And then realizing that they're just regular people on the other end.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah.
That's a key factor, that you can have everybody who's in any room you're with has a sense of humor to some extent and has a life outside of whatever it is that you're doing. And so understanding that they're just regular people, that you don't really need to put on a show to the same extent.
Exactly. And especially if you look at that authenticity, like you want to be able to share yourself and people are going to connect with who you are. They don't, that's okay. And I like the fact that you said like they're regular people, and think about a lot of times, yeah, we're presenting, but more than likely as entrepreneurs, we're also going to other presentations. So the fact that we play different roles, and how do you feel as someone who's attending, and what would you like to see in a presentation or a webinar, and then including that when you do it yourself. So putting yourself kind of in those shoes as well. So thank you everyone for sharing. So we're going to move into really the influence of mindset on building rapport. I'm not going to get too deep into this just because with mindset work, we can have I love having conversations about mindset, but they can go really deep. But basically a quote that I like to say when it comes to mindset, and especially when it comes to being on camera, is that you cannot outperform your self-image. So just kind of I'll let that sink in, and I'll say it again. You cannot outperform your self-image. What that quote is basically saying, and this is a Bob Proctor quote, and it's all about the fact that if you don't see yourself as that person who's able to connect with your audience, to build that rapport that you want to build, then you're going to have much greater challenge creating it. So what you want to do is start to identify what is the image that you want to have, and what is the image you have today that you can start from in building the image you want to be. This is sometimes a conversation where people start saying, well, it's imposter syndrome. I feel like an imposter showing up. And what I say to that is, to me, when you're showing up as the person that a lot of times you think, well, I'm going to show up as the person that I want to be in the future. My response is the fact that you're just bringing that person in the future to where you are today. You're not showing up as someone else. You're showing up as who that person is. It could be just a month from now, but it's still you. At the end of the day, it's still you. It's not somebody else. It's just that person you've grown into. You've just brought them closer to who you are right now. So that's about self-image. So I've got an exercise in the booklet that is really all about understanding and writing down in the booklet, what are some doubts, worries, and fears that you have related to connecting with your audience on camera, how you feel about being on camera. So really writing those out, and then understanding and asking yourself, what proof do you have around that doubt, worry, or fear? And then what solutions might be possible to help you solve, if there's a challenge with your doubt, worries, and fear, what solutions available to remove those or at least lessen them? And how can you reshape your mindset around any of the doubts, worries, or fear? So common doubts, worries, and fears that I hear from clients and guests on the show are people who are afraid of freezing. They're not sure what to say. They feel like they don't have the right look for being on camera. There's a huge fear about, what if nobody shows up? Or only one person shows up? Or people don't respond to my questions? Those are a lot of the doubts, worries, and fears that I hear from clients and from the show. So for each of those doubts, worries, and fears, really look at them and just look at, what is the proof that you have? And maybe in the past something has happened and it's true, but what can you do differently in the future, or the next time you do a webinar or a summit or an online training video that is going to get you a different result? If you keep doing the same thing over and over, your result won't change. Something has to be changed about what it is that you're doing. And a lot of times the root comes down to the fact that we have doubts, we have these worries, these fears, and until we shift those around, then the outcomes won't change. So a story I have around this is, I used to have a huge fear of cameras, to the point where when I was going into my wedding, the joke was who my husband would be in pictures with. I just did not like being on camera. I did not like being photos. I didn't think I was pretty enough. I didn't think I photographed well. I wasn't photogenic. And when I did my business the first time, so I am admittedly a second time around entrepreneur, in my business the first time, that ability to put myself out there, to be seen, to be heard, to be visible, was one of the reasons why my first business failed. I had this huge fear of being seen. Because what if people judge me? What if people don't agree with what I have to say? What if people don't like it? So there's this huge fear, which is one of the reasons why I had to return to the workforce. Now, I shared I had a fear of cameras, and I failed in visibility was a big part of the failure of my first business. So how did I get to being on TV and hosting? And I have to share that when I'm on camera and I'm doing the TV show, when I'm doing this webinar with you, I feel absolutely alive. The shift for me came from the belief in my ability to help others. When I came up with the idea for the C-suite, and then I pitched it, and I said I would be the host, I was scared. I didn't know how I was going to do this. I have no background in broadcasting, TV, nothing. But the belief that I had in the ability for me to solve the challenges that women were having in their careers, to provide a platform for women entrepreneurs to be seen and heard, that belief in the impact that we created is what allowed me to get over the fear of being on camera, that fear of judgment, of what to say, what are people, and that people might not like me. So the belief helped me to get over the fear. And once I got on camera, it was pretty rough. You can Google my first, season 1, episode 1, segment 1. It's pretty rough. But where you start is not where you have to stay. So just know that wherever you are in your visibility journey today and how you feel about engaging with your audience on camera, it's just where you are today. And it's absolutely your choice and in your power to shift and change that. So I flipped it around. So it wasn't about me. Me getting visible and being on camera was no longer about me. It was about best serving. For me, it was women and helping them to remove the challenges so that they couldn't suffer. They weren't feeling stuck, or they weren't settling in their careers or their business. So thank you, Jessica, for your feedback. Thank you for sharing your honesty. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I was going to say, you also got a comment on Facebook that their fear was looking stupid on the camera was always a concern.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And that's, valid fear. So every fear that you have, your fear, doubts, and worries, fears, and doubts, they're all valid because they're real to you. But when you start to write them down, you want to understand, where are they coming from? And do you truly believe them? And what's the proof around it? So that was the question I was going to have. So, that was a great segue into it. So in the comments or the chat, if you're comfortable, share what is a doubt, worry, or fear that you have today about being visible or being on camera. Because I'm pretty sure, based on the work that I've done today, being a TV host and talking with guests, the fears, doubts, and worries that you have, other people have them too. So if you want to share, feel free to share. What is a current fear, doubt, or worry that you have about being on camera and building that rapport with your audience? Not good looking, being misunderstood, or comments coming in from the Zoom. Yes. Saying the wrong thing in an interview. Yes. And for me, the saying the wrong thing, one thing about interviews is I get from the guests all the time is, oh, did I say that right? Or, was that good enough? Was that good enough? I had to say is the number one question that guests ask once our interview is done, or I call them conversations. What the conversation's done. Oh, was that good enough? I hope that was good enough. Absolutely. And if things didn't go exactly as planned, or you didn't share the right information, or you said something wrong, a lot of times your audience isn't even going to know, because you are the expert in what it is that you know, the service that you provide, your experience, your stories. You're the expert. Nobody else knows that. So a lot of times, if there's this fear about saying the wrong thing, a lot of times your audience won't even notice, because they see you as the expert. And so if you get something wrong and you know that, then you can always correct yourself. And again, we also have one on
Facebook as being relatable. Fear of being relatable, or drawing a blank in the middle of something.
Drawing a blank. So drawing a blank is a good one. And that's common when I was putting together my confidence on camera course. Drawing a blank, freezing is huge. So that's why I use notes, and I'm not afraid to use notes. I'm not afraid to share with you that I'm using notes, because it helps if you freeze, you can look down and then you can find yourself where you are. So I'm open about that. For me, I like to use notes, not just because it creates structure, so that if I happen to forget or freeze or don't know, I can look down and it's right there. And I use different colors as well on the page. So if I really want something to make sure I say it, I put it in red. If I'm telling a story, then I put that in orange, because orange is more that free, fun kind of color. Okay, so getting into the third part of this, which is integrating rapport building elements on camera. So I'm gonna give 4 tips around this. So the first thing is, and really, rapport building starts before you even say hello. My background is, I have a background in adult education, instructional design, and workplace learning. So how I approach putting together this webinar or any course that I do or in programs is I leverage this instructional design and adult education background. And it's all about, how do you build a rapport through your material? And it's really great if you look at it from an instructional design perspective. It's all about, you're not writing the material based on you, the expert, what it is that you know. You're writing it based on your audience's perspective. So you're shifting things around right away. So all of a sudden you're putting the audience front and center as to how you're building something. And I really, really like using what's called participatory or experiential learning designs. So kind of tip 1 for integrating rapport building elements on camera is to look at your design. And a design tool that I really like to use is called BOPS, BOPPPS. B stands for bridge in, O stands for outcomes. The first P is pre-assessment. Second P is participatory learning. And the last P is post-assessment. And the S is summary. This is just a way, and you can Google it, just BOPS, BOPPPS, and you can see it's a framework, and it's a design framework that, again, that you can use to be at cause and in control of that design and that output when you're having these conversations, webinar, seminar, online training video. The second way to integrate, a second element is a conversation framework. So even within the design, how are you going to build a conversation in? One that I like to use, and you may have noticed it already as we go through this conversation, or if you watch the replay, I like to have a teaching point, I share a story, and then I ask a question, and then I repeat for however teaching points that I want to have. The third element is try not to cut loose your audience when you're done. So at the end of the conversation, end of your webinar, try not to cut your audience loose. You want to guide and continue the conversation with them to encourage and continue to building that rapport. You can do things like this by giving a takeaway at the end of your conversation, asking questions, giving them an action to take, or even some homework. And then how can they follow up with you when they've completed the homework? The fourth element is all about the camera, and it's to smile. So as soon as you're hitting record or go live, smile. And then there's a difference between looking in the camera and looking at the camera. This is something I work with clients, and you can do this on your own. You grab your phone or your webinar camera, your laptop camera, and you look at the camera, but then you look in the camera. And when looking in the camera is you're looking for, I was told, like, look for the mirror in the back of the camera. There's no mirror technically, but basically what you want to do is you want to be staring like right almost through that camera. So if you have a picture behind it or there's a person standing behind it, you're not seeing the camera anymore. You're seeing what's on the other side, because this allows you, it means you are looking right at the other person who's more than likely looking right at you on their computer screen. You're looking right at that camera and they're seeing you look right at them. Like right now, I am looking at you in that camera and you're engaging through that lens. So there's a difference between looking into the camera versus looking at the camera. And that's an exercise you can do on your own. So again, I've started to allude before that I have a background in adult education and I love instructional design. Used in my courses and programs, I see a lot when I look at other events that I've gone to and how other people are structuring their webinars. And I see they're structuring it more sometimes for marketing and sales purposes, which sometimes can include a lot of these participatory elements or these engagement elements. But what I really like is I always build in a lot of conversational elements to whatever it is that I do. And when I've included these in my courses and my programs, I get a lot of really good feedback from my clients to basically say something's different. They can tell there's a structure, they can tell something's going on, but they know something's different in how I'm putting things together. So and they're liking it because it's giving them a chance to highlight them, to have conversations. And it's also allowing them to learn from me as well. So when you're looking at these rapport building elements for on camera, looking at different ways that you can design and create different experiences for your audience through the camera. A lot of the times that can be done, again, looking at how you're designing the framework for the conversations, takeaways, and again, smiling and engaging with the camera. So what I talked about, the design, the framework, the smiling, the looking in versus at the camera, or leaving your audience with a takeaway or continuing the conversation. Have you included any of these elements already in what it is that you're doing in your own business? And what of those elements works for you? So if you want to share in the chat or the comments, you can do so. So of the 4 elements I talked about, the design, that you have a very specific design and intention around how you're putting together your program or your webinar, whether it be you're smiling at or in the camera or looking at or in the camera, you have a framework for the conversation. What do you include, or what have you included? Or if you have not thought about any of these things, share that as well. Like, oh, this is new to you. Maybe you've just been following someone else's format that you like, but you don't necessarily have understood before what that is or why it's done the way it is. Maybe this is something you're learning new. So what are things that you do? Is there anything coming in from Facebook at all, Angela?
No, I was gonna say it's pretty quiet right now. Like, I think everybody's thinking, which is quite all right.
Okay.
I was gonna say I use most of these tools on a day-to-day, but I do see that there are some chats now here. This is entirely new to Jessica. I think that having a framework for a conversation would be really reassuring. And Angela suggested that she generally has a framework for the conversations. And I can appreciate you teaching point plus story plus question framework. I was gonna say, and it really depends for you, like for the business center and the different sessions I run. Some of them are very structured. It's me talking to the camera and answering the odd questions. And some of them are very conversational, like this kind of conversation. And it really just depends on what it is we're trying to teach too. So gearing it towards purpose is also very beneficial as well.
Yeah, good point as well. And if anyone uses that BOPS tool, it talks about, again, knowing your audience, what is the purpose behind it? It's like, again, you're structuring it based on the learner, not what you, the expert, want to share. So it's flipping things around a little bit. Okay, so we are in the final stretch. So the last piece that we're going to talk about are common on-camera concerns and how to handle them like a pro. These are things, again, I've experienced them, my clients have shared them with me, and maybe they may sound familiar to you as well. So we're going to talk about the concerns and then strategies on how to handle them. The first one is, there's a concern where no one's going to show up. You have a webinar, you've got people to sign up, you want them to register, and you're ready to go, and nobody signs up or nobody shows up. What do you do? So kind of my strategy to this is, if nobody shows up and I've offered a replay, I kind of like these, and I've had it before where I've showed up, people have registered, no one shows up. I'm like, oh, what do I do? And I feel bad, but then I think, you know what, I'm gonna have a lot of fun, because now I don't have to worry about how I'm gonna look, and I give the best performance of my life. So if nobody shows up to your webinar and you have to do a recording, it becomes sometimes a lot more free, because just give the best performance of your life, have fun, and still run through your elements, run through your participatory elements. You can ask and you can share. So when you're watching this in the replay, think, have this question, press pause. And then when you're done writing your question down, you're reflecting, press play again, and then we'll continue on. Like, just for me, it's about giving the best performance of your life. If you're not giving a replay, I have done this before as well. I still go ahead and do it, because it becomes practice anyway. And sometimes I'll even record it so I can look at myself, and then you get to assess. So another common on-camera concern is only one person shows up. And what do you do? Again, you've lots of people registered, only one person shows up. And it becomes, when I was talking with a client about this was a concern of hers. And she's like, well, it's only one person. What do I do? It's gonna be kind of weird. I said, let's flip it around. For the person who's shown up and they're the only ones, look at the value they're getting. So if you only have one person showing up to your webinar, look at the one-on-one value that they are getting. So it's flipping around. It's not about you. It's serving, again, everyone who shows up, whether it be in the replay or that one person. If one person shows up, they become like the one-on-one, and it almost becomes this personalized session to them. And I've had this happen, and people walk away feeling amazing because it was almost custom designed for them. Another concern is you ask questions and there's no response, which does happen. Sometimes when you ask questions, if you ask a really reflective question or a deep question, people are thinking. They need time to reflect. They need time to, oh, maybe they're connecting it back, and they're not able to phrase a response right away. Sometimes you just need to give them a little bit more time to type in, because there's always the lag. We've seen it today with the technology. There's a lag between asking and then people typing in. And sometimes it just needs to be reframed. Maybe the question was too high level, it was too generic, or it was too specific. If a question is very specific, take it up. Kind of take it up a notch and go a little bit more broad and ask the question again. And the last concern is, we've already talked about this. What happens if you lose your place, or you had this awkward start? The losing place, again, notes work really well. Or if you don't want to use notes, stickies. I've had it where I put stickies all around my camera so I can just very quickly check. And I had them with different colors as well. And again, the awkward start, again, we go back to being in cause, having a plan, having conversation questions to go. And if you're leading a webinar and people are starting to show up late, if you can, just allow auto join. so that you don't have to worry about letting people in the room. If it's just you and you don't have someone like Angela who's letting people in from the waiting room, just having auto join and just letting people know you start at 7 o'clock, and by 7:02, just kind of let everyone know, okay, we're going to start by 7:02. So if you need to, answer that last email, you want to go get a quick drink, go ahead, we're going to start in 2 minutes. And so you kind of let them know what's happening. And then at 7:02, you start. So things like that, those are kind of some common concerns and how to handle them. So I have to share, so when it comes to webinars, I've had, again, my second time around as an entrepreneur, and I've had the experience where I've had webinars, I've hosted webinars, and lots of people have signed up. You actually go live, one person shows up. I did a webinar last year where I was doing a morning and an evening session. So the same webinar, just morning and evening. Some people messaged me who knew me and said, oh, I can't make morning, but I'll be there at night. Perfect. And then I had vice versa. So of course I get there in the morning, one person shows up. And because it was this great conversation, I said, you know what, you stay off mute. Don't mute yourself. This is going to be more of a conversation. Just know this is going to be recorded and may go out. So we had this great conversation, and I got to learn more about her, and she felt that she got a lot of value. Same thing happened at nighttime. Again, lots of people registered, and some people said specifically, I'll see you tonight. They never showed up. I had one person show up at my evening webinar again. I said, okay, here we go. So guess what? You get a one-on-one. Take yourself off mute. Put your hand up if you have a question, and I get to stop whenever it is that you want to stop. The value that was provided to them, both people who came, they absolutely felt it. The feedback I got was high value, and they both became clients. So it's not necessarily about how many people show up to your webinar, how many people sign up. It's about the value that you are providing, that ability for you to create that rapport and almost make that webinar all about them, whether there be one person or 100 people on it. It's about how you're going to serve and how you're connecting with people. And when you connect with people, they're going to want to work with you. So any of the 4 scenarios that I provided, did any of those sound familiar? Has anyone experienced and had any of those scenarios? So nobody shows up, one person shows up, you ask questions and no one responds, or you lose your place, or you have that awkward spot. Anyone have this experience?
I was going to say yes to all the above. And I have, yeah, and I was going to say, I have recorded many a one person. And what we'll do sometimes is I'll do kind of like these programs where we'll at the end have a conversation. So I'll go through my slide decks, I'll go through the information, record that, stop the recording. Ends up being a lot faster than my normal with interaction. And then I have an hour or 45 minutes one-on-one with somebody off camera, off recording, and we can just dive in for the brain dump that I did of information and really hone it down to their individual needs. We do have some answers in the chat now. So questions with no one responding is definitely. Yes, lots of people who come in after the first 15 minutes. For those of you who take our workshops, you will note that you don't get into my room until about 5 minutes after, and that is to try and alleviate some of that. Nobody shows up till about 2 minutes after a workshop is supposed to start. It just doesn't happen. So
yeah, perfect. Yes. And yep, we have from Karen, just from Facebook, just sent working on looking into the camera. It's so simple. And when you see it on video, if you do that exercise yourself, you'll notice there is a difference. You're like, wow, I didn't know that. And that's how, let's say, TV and movie stars, they're looking in the camera. And that's how you sometimes feel like they're really connecting with you, because they're pros at looking in, not just at the camera. Yeah, and Benita's saying, yes, lots of people who come in after the first 15 minutes. Yes, yeah. So, and from Angela, questions with no one responding. Definitely, she's experienced that. So again, these are common. So especially if you're doing your first webinar, your 10th webinar, and you've got these fears, and then these fears, oh, no one's going to show up. You can handle them like a pro now. Again, you're not the only one who has experience. It's part of the entrepreneurial journey. And now you've got tips and some insights on how to handle them like a pro. So kind of quick review now, since we're almost at the end of our time, quick review of what was covered. I talked and shared about easy ways and simple steps to build rapport through the camera. I talked about how mindset influences your courage, your comfort, and your confidence on camera. I identified tools and strategies to include rapport building activities into your on-camera presence. And we discussed common on-camera audience concerns and strategies on how to handle them. So kind of wrap us up, what is one thing that you've learned or you've become more aware of over the last we'll say 50 minutes of this presentation? So just one thing you've learned that's new or you've become more aware of today. If you want to share that in the chat or the comments, that would be great. I'll see if I can get the Facebook to load. Nope.
No, it's not working. I find the
No.
internet is so slow today. Like I've been having issues across the board. So I see Benita did put one in the chat. So
yes, glad to know the struggles are universal. Good. Yes. More than likely, if you've had a concern, how you feel, you're not alone. You're not alone in feeling that. It's just more how, with knowing what you know now, how are you going to move forward? So Angela is definitely saying more aware, looking into the camera. And again, it's good to know that you're not alone. Absolutely. Thank you everyone for sharing.
On Facebook, we have a comment of interested in investigating BOPs. So they're going to go looking further into that. So
yay! I like BOPs. It sounds cool. It sounds fun. And it's just nice. It's an easy to follow template as well, which I love as well. So if you look into BOPs again, you can apply it really easily to whatever webinar or topic that you're going to be talking about. And Jessica is saying, amazes me when people who start in a position like mine overwhelm. Yeah, yes. So again, looking at, we're not alone. You're not alone and you can be successful. So wherever, again, one of my favorite quotes is, where you start is not where you have to stay. It's all about learning, applying, practicing, and growing. So I do have a take action for you to continue the conversation after today, is to write down or think about one tip, idea, or strategy that you want to practice or integrate, even starting today, into your business and your on-camera work. So you don't have to write that in the chat, it's just more for you to think about and be more aware of. If you download and you print out the workbook, that question is in there. So write down one tip, idea, strategy you want to practice or integrate. And then for anyone who wants kind of to learn more visibility tips or mindset coaching, just you can follow with me. You can follow and connect with me on social. I focus on mindset and visibility, sharing tips and stories and strategies, and just sometimes just support and cheerleading. So thank you so much for everyone participating, for your comments, being in the chat and the comments on Facebook and here on the Zoom. And again, thank you, Angela, for facilitating this, into the Business Center Guelph-Wellington, for having me here today.
No, thank you. That was a wonderful program. So those of you who are in our room, please stick around. I don't mind going a little long. If you would like to stick around and talk outside of the recording, that would be great. For those of you who are watching through Facebook or on YouTube, if you would like to connect with Danielle or even just continue this conversation, please put them in the chats. I monitor them regularly. I oversee all our socials, as well as do send us an email, success@guelphbusiness.com. I can connect you directly with Danielle through that as well. So thank you, Danielle. Lots of information, lots of stuff to implement for everyone. Next week, we have a live lunch and learn with just me. I'm going to be going over barcoding. So we're not going to do a live Zoom at that time. It's just going to be on Facebook and then re-recorded onto YouTube. But if you're interested, I will be monitoring the chat at that time. We're going to talk about barcodes, UPC codes, and what's the difference of GS1 and a third-party barcoding app. So if you are interested in that, please come to that. If you're interested in connecting with us at any time for anything with business related, we're here for you. We have lots of events and workshops as well going on. So thank you to everyone in the room. Thank you to Danielle, and thank you everyone watching Facebook, YouTube, and we'll see you again next week. So have yourselves a great day.